retail doors they had by year, all the way to year 14, where both Lulu and UA hit $1 billion. And what we were really trying to solve for is like, okay, you know, what are the building blocks to get to $1 billion? And I think the first thing we noticed that might have been counterintuitive, but really led to Stance, was that it wasn't about the brand at all. It was, I would say, much more about their first product being really good. And not even really good, but like a good category in terms of either the competitors were weak or customers really liked it. I call it a hero product. And right, Under Armour had first layer compression. Kevin Plank was the captain of the University of Maryland football team, and he hated wearing cotton under his football pads because it would get so soaked with sweat. So the problem he's solving for is, you know, how do I get something that wicks moisture better under my pad so it's like first layer compression? Lululemon, of course, had the yoga pant. Tory Burch had this reimagined ballet flat for women that she named the Riva slipper after her mother. And all three of those products went to $100 million in sales. And my argument is that the brands didn't even matter. No one even cared about the brands. They just cared about the product. And then those companies sort of woke up, and what they all did that was magic is they were able to make the transition from a yoga pant brand or a first layer compression underwear and shirt brand or a women's dress shoe brand into a brand, which could be an umbrella for dozens or hundreds of categories. So I guess when you say brand, my initial reaction is, yes, you should care about the iconography, your fonts, your shapes, your design, your colors, because those all do play a role in brand, but those can be changed, and not that many people know who your brand is anyway, so if you make a mistake there or it's not that great and you need to refine it later, it's not a big deal. You know, the parts of brand where it's like customer service and what does it feel like to do business with your company, that's going to be whatever you make it. It'll be an extension of your own personalities and how you care about those things inside your company. So the way we looked at it as Stance was kind of like, the brand doesn't matter. Let's just go win in socks. We'll build a really great product. We'll have cool designs. And the philosophy there was that people will buy them for the design, but they'll rebuy them for the quality. So we never talk about features and benefits, like our sock has a better fiber, wicks better abrasion resistance, or doesn't give you blisters. We never talk about that. We just sew some super badass Sex Pistols sock, and someone's like, I love the Sex Pistols, I gotta have that sock. You know, and then they wear it and they're like, wow, this is really comfortable. This is better than any other sock I've owned. And we hope when that minute happens that they rebuy. So that's kind of our thinking around brand and positioning and design versus quality. So look, yes, you should have a brand, but I'm not sure that investing in the brand per se is going to do anything. I'd also caution you in that, like, it's higher than, it's like
limits, like,
I don't know, 95% of the venture capitalists you talk with will think that they know about brands, and they actually don't. So you will constantly get bad advice if you walk up and down the rooms of Sand Hill Road. Notwithstanding, there are like 10 to 20 partners who are really switched on, really do understand brands, and are great. But it's a pretty short list. And the problem is the other 95% think they do know brands. And so they're happy to give you as much advice as you want. So what would I do? Look, I don't know so much about your product category, so it's tough for me to say, but I know, for example, if you take something generic like SaaS, and if I took your profile and I went to 20 venture capitalists and I said, all right, I got a SaaS company, is doing $50,000 a month in sales, the burn rate's $3,000, the average ticket's $10,000, it's in this category. what do you think the valuation should be? And it would be extraordinary, like, how tight that number would be. It's like everyone would just agree. They would be like, yeah, it's worth this. And it would be in a pretty tight band. And I feel like the question that I can't answer for you, which is really the important question, is what would need to be true for a great VC to want to put money in you? Like, what would either the metrics need to be, the revenue, the growth, the customers, the proprietary technology? Like, what would that need to be to induce a bunch of people to invest? And I can speak from a stance perspective. We raised an angel round never believing any venture capitalist would give us money. We thought it would be angel funded. And our initial projection was that we could get to break even between 5 and 7 million in revenue. The first year we did 1.3 million. The second year we did 5.9 million. And I came to the board and I was like, look, we don't have any money for inventory. And they were like, go raise a little bit more money. And I think I was in the exact same situation you were in, where I was still burning a similar amount of money per month, and we didn't have a ton of cash. We had raised like 1.5 million. And I went back on the road, raised the other 1.5 million from angels, and closed a $3 million Series A. And I took that 1.5 million, I put it into inventory, and that year we did 21 million in sales and 1.5 million of EBITDA. And so I would say our break even in reality ended up being something like 10 or 12 million before we kind of turned to the corner. And maybe that was because we were adding some expense as we went, because we could see the momentum. And I still didn't know if we could attract any capital, right? Because the idea of raising money for a brand that was selling socks seems so far from something a Silicon Valley VC would invest in. Mm-hmm. But I went up to Sand Hill Road and I did the full like dog and pony. I played them off each other. I like had literally 8 meetings in a week. And then I called them all and said, I'm coming back on Monday for partner meetings. My day's filling up. If you want me at your partner meeting, you got to tell me now or I won't be able to make it. And I think I got 6 or 7 of the 8 to give me term sheets.
Wow.
I just created a competition.
That's unbelievable.
That's badass, Jeff.
And so it was like, look, I'm coming up Monday. I'm going to be on Sand Hill at 10 a.m. I could swing by your partner meeting at 9 or 11 or not. You know, like, and then, of course, once you get one term sheet, it's like, from then on, it's really easy to generate a second. It's getting the first one that's hard. And so we were pleasantly surprised that people were willing to invest in it. And what was really interesting from our perspective, our big recurring problem when I fundraised that round was that somewhere inevitably into the presentation, almost all of our revenue came from like sneaker shops and skateboard shops and like fashion doors like Fred Siegel, someplace like that. And we had very little online revenue, like 10%. Because we hadn't invested in a website. We were just using Magento, off-the-shelf tools. We had no developers, which also meant we had no technical debt, to your earlier reference. Like, we weren't paying engineers. They're expensive, and we were just using off-the-shelf tools. And long and short of it is that they would all say, well, how much of your business is e-com? And I could just tell they were trying to, like, mentally check a box to say, if you're not e-commerce, we can't invest in you.
Right.
So I developed this slide that said why e-commerce is a shitty investment category. And I showed like Blue Nile and Overstock.com and all these venture-backed companies that trade at like 1 times revenue that are shitty public companies. And then I had another slide that showed all the e-commerce companies that had ever sold for more than $1 billion. And this was before Jet and Dollar Shave Club. It was like 7 companies ever. And most of them happened like 20 years ago. And I was like, why are you guys investing in a category that has so few, you know, large outcomes? What a shitty investment category. You guys are stupid to invest in e-commerce. And then I had another slide, and I showed, like, Michael Kors, Polo, Coach, Under Armour, Lululemon. They're all trading at, like, 4 times revenue, crazy PE multiples. And I'm like, wouldn't you want to wouldn't you want to invest in a brand? Like, that's expansive. Brands are interesting. Like, wouldn't you want to have Nike 40 years ago? And I would just switch the conversations from e-com to brand. And I think it made them feel stupid, and they're not used to that. I think it gave me like an information advantage. Mm-hmm. And it like challenged the way that they were thinking about investing. And I think that helped us because it made us seem like we were more sophisticated than them. So that was kind of the playbook we used, I think, to get the financing done. But to be honest with you, I was completely prepared to just angel fund it and then like get debt from a bank. Because I didn't think the VCs would ever give us money. So I guess the reason I tell you that story is when I asked the question, like, what would have to be true for most VCs to want to give you money at a certain price? I think the answer for a stock company is like, grow to 20 million in 3 years and be profitable, and most VCs will want to give you money. And so it's kind of like, I don't know what that is for your company exactly, like what the metrics need to be or what the shining star needs to be that you can take into those meetings. But like, it should be clear, like, if we have this, everyone's going to want to give us money. You know, they're going to want to fuel the growth we already have. And I think it has to be more than just putting money in the Facebook machine because, quite frankly, as you know, there's like so few arbitrages left that are true, like CAC to LTV arbitrages. And if there's an arbitrage on Facebook today, it won't be there 2 years from now. Like, I watched it with AdWords, I watched it with Instagram, it's like every platform that actually, it never happened on Twitter because no one ever got a return on Twitter. But every platform that's worked, it's happening on Messenger right now, you know, it's good for a minute. And then the money eventually finds its way there and it's not good anymore. And so you do have to figure out a way to get the customers in a more grassroots, organic way. So segue into influencers. I had invested in a company back in 2004 called Skull Candy. And they were kind of doing like fashion headphones before Beats. And we had signed a number of athletes along the way and celebrities, everyone from James Harden and Kevin Durant right out of school to like Snoop Dogg. And what we had learned is they would come in for a few years. Like, I think Kevin Durant, we paid him like $20,000 a year. And then 3 years later, his contract expired, and his agent would be like, if it's not 7 figures, don't call me.
Right.
And so when we started Stance, that led me to thinking, like, I got to wire these guys into my cap table and make them part of the business. Because even if I can afford them from, like, a quote-unquote influencer marketing perspective, it's all, like, it's hard to keep them engaged. They either become really popular and you can't afford them, or they just lose interest, or they get hurt and they don't play the sport anymore, or whatever. It just seemed like, man, we could never compete with Nike like that. So with Stance, we went and raised money from Mike Levine, who's the president of CAA Sports. And then he introduced us to Dwayne Wade, who invested. And we knew Landmark, so I knew Kobe and Harden because I knew Diane and the people that worked there. And so we knew enough, like, sports agencies where, like, we had Casey Wasserman invest and Michael Rapino and Universal Music Group. We tried to get these guys to give us, they all gave us, like, you know, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. They were part of our angel round. And, like, that was really helpful. They were a lot easier to raise money from because I think they'd seen Vitamin Water and Beats by Dre, and they'd seen how these influencer marketing deals were starting to work, at least some of them.
Yeah.
You know, right now everyone's talking about Kate Hudson and Fabletics and how well that's doing, and obviously Jessica Alba and Honest has become a really good case study. I don't know how well they're doing, but everyone knows about it. And so it was like, man, I got to get these guys on my cap table. And so I had Harden invest $400. I had D Wade invest $250. And getting those guys, like, involved from the very beginning. I put Jay Brown, who was Rihanna's manager, on my board. And like, he's a really great guy. I love working with him. He's smart, super humble, low key. And like, getting him to invest and sit on the board is way better than having an endorsement deal with Rihanna. It's like 100 times better.
Right.
I'm like when I need something from Rihanna, I don't call her, I call him. You know? And so I guess the advice I would give is, what I would do is I would go into a room with those guys and I would give them my vision for a brand, a big brand, but it was going to start with socks and move out from there. And then I would try, if they were naturally excited about it, then I would pitch them on the investment. And if they weren't that excited about it, or I could just tell they weren't enthusiastic, then I wouldn't pitch them. Because, like, if you do an endorsement deal and you're like, oh, you got to do 2 appearances and 2 Instagrams per month or whatever, it will never work. Like, our contracts just basically say, you'll help build Stance and we'll help build your brand. And then when I call them up and I'm like, hey, can you make our party at the NBA All-Star game? Or, hey, we're doing a store opening in Miami, Florida. Can you make it? They almost always say yes. Like, they don't have any requirement to be there, but we utilize them. We ask them to post stuff. And, you know, it's served us really well. So we're probably, like, when I think if you're like Taco Bell or The Gap, and you're like, we got to do influencer marketing, I think they just like call up CAA, and CAA's like, yeah, spend us a couple $1,000,000 and we'll match make you with some celebrity. And
right.
It's just a financial transaction, and the celebrity doesn't give a shit afterwards. And so whether you like wrap them into it, like Jessica Alba or Kate Hudson with Fabletics, or whether you just get them a part of the cap table, either one of those ways I think can work. The like buying the celebrity endorsement, I don't think works at all. It's not it's just wasting your time. Plus, you have to pay money to do those, and you don't have to pay any money. You get them to invest. It's funny, when we finally did a deal with Harden, it took us a while to get it done, but confidentially, like, he invested $400,000 and we pay him $100,000 a year, and it was a 5-year deal, I think. So it's like, it's a net neutral deal in cash, but he feels like an owner.
Right.
So that's how I would think about whether it's one celebrity that could really move the needle, who would be super influential and kind of align with the whole brand idea of like brain food, or whether it's a bunch of celebrities that they don't really know anything about it, but you could educate them and they would then get on board. Either one of those is good. And maybe you just need someone on your board or someone as an investor that can kind of make those introductions for you.
And then just going back to the DTC stuff, so is it still, like, what's the percent breakdown for you guys now, roughly? Is it still predominantly through retail channels?
We're like low 30% now, direct. So, you know, every year that number, like, our online business is still growing at 100%, where our offline business is only growing at like 40%. So, you know, the online is definitely where the growth is for us, because it's just more scalable. I look at Nordstrom as like positive contribution customer acquisition. I don't even think of it as a distribution channel. I'm like, look, someone's going to be in Nordstrom. Hopefully they discover our product there, and hopefully when they go to rebuy, they buy from us. Yeah, and that's probably true some percent of the time.
That's what we heard from, I'm not sure if you know the guys at Club W, but we have a common investor and had always share notes with them. And when they got into Whole Foods with their wine brand, you know, they started doing their own private label wine brands, and that's how they looked at it at first. They said that they couldn't obviously wire it, you know, directly and say that it was exactly from that, but they could tell that there was just getting a lot of exposure, and that would drive the online, you know, membership, wine club memberships that they were going for anyway for their real growth. So we actually have a very small thing going on now here with Erewhon. I don't know if you know that store, but there's like there's 3 units. It's kind of like a hardcore Whole Foods. But there's 3 units here in LA, so we're curious just to see what happens. But yeah, we have like 0 expectations to make any money from it. It's just like seeing if it can happen. But I mean, I think you're spot on with like because I came from Unilever, and we did a lot of celebrity stuff on our like men's brands, and like I totally agree that I think I hadn't heard something quite as liberal as like that sort of, it's almost like a handshake deal when you're getting them on the cap table for those appearances. But I totally agree that it's a waste when you just get them down to 2 tweets a quarter or whatever it is, like that it's totally that. But like, I mean, with the online now on that side, are you guys getting it? Like, are new customers coming from like on the paid side? Is it still Facebook, or is there something where you're actually getting like distribution through influencers? Because I noticed with you guys, you're also embedding it into the product, like with these different properties, of course. So that's a little bit different from like what we could pull off.
Yeah, well, Stance, we're a little unique. You could think of us like as Lego, right? So we have these like families of products that are ours, but then about 20% of our business is like collab with Disney, Star Wars, NBA, Major League Baseball, Bravado for music. And so what we found is what Facebook is great for, like if I just put a striped sock on Facebook, it performs miserably. But if I show an Oakland A's sock to people that live in the East Bay of San Francisco, it performs really well, sort of. So we get really high initial conversion and very low repurchase and loyalty. And by contrast, when someone comes to us naturally through just not baseball, basketball, or the NCAA or whatever, what's cool is that, the initial conversion is low, so the return on ad spend is low, but the lifetime value is much better. In other words, when we have to persuade a customer to do business with us, they're not good long-term customers. And when they hear about us through like word of mouth, or they just naturally have an affinity, then the LTV is much higher. So we have a natural incentive in our business to like get customers in a grassroots, honest way and not advertise. But, we're like, call it just north of 100 million. I think we did just under 50 million in the fourth quarter. And we will spend like $2 million in advertising total this year.
Wow. What?
And most of that is spent in the fourth quarter.
You got to be kidding me. That's insane.
We spend very little on advertising. We try and do it through social media and grassroots. Like, if you look at Instagram, we have Stance Instagram, the sock channel, which is like 1.1 million. And then we have Stance Hoops and Stance Links. All in, we're 2 million across our channels. You look at Under Armour, they're just under 3 million, and they're 30 years old. You look at Honest Company, Bonobos, Warby Parker, and they're all like either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but like well below us. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
And we also grow per day, where Nike, as an example, they're actually losing more followers on Instagram each day than they gain.
Yeah, I mean, some of these themes, like, I can just tell you, like, so I had this conversation with a few VCs that are like, wait, they only invest when you're at like the $10 million mark, and we're only at 3 in terms of run rate. So I was asking them, like, from the patterns you've seen, like, what do you think if we were able to get there, like, we would be doing, like, if I told you, hey, we're at 10 million now, when I call you in a year or 2 or whatever, like, what do you think we would have achieved to be able to get there that we don't have now? And that was their big thing. Like, it was basically like the amount of kind of earned media and attention and like the following that we have on like Instagram and Pinterest, and like they thought maybe even like with the female audience like coming more like balanced into the fold, like that was a big thing that we would need to have, like if they were to guess, you know, and project like how we would have gotten there. But I mean, the other thing I was gonna say is like we're trying to work on that now, just in a very scrappy way, and like what we heard from other companies, like we talked to Adore Me recently, and like it's kind of the same thing, like with constantly scrambling to figure out how to showcase, you know, for both for paid media like Facebook ads and like ammo there, but also just on the organic side, like how do you showcase your product in like these, like in a shareable way that just like there's certain people that have a knack for it, right? And like that's what we're currently trying to use influencers for, is just to get like their contextualizing of our product in like cool different environments that we can then learn from, and maybe supplement by doing that ourselves and just with freelancers. But that's kind of like our current effort there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the companies that have sort of broken out, like at Ipsy, you know, they discovered, whether you want to call it like a growth hack or something else, but they discovered some arbitrage somewhere, whether it's word of mouth or whether it's facilitated by social media or YouTube or whatever. They figured out a way to kind of expose what they're doing in a cost-efficient way. And whether that's a cool loyalty program or, you know, there's like all sorts of ways to get at it. And I think that's what, you know, the problem with paid online media in general is that it's so formulaic, anyone can do it, right? It's just math. And the channels will support what they'll support up to a certain size, after which you get an efficient frontier and the yield curve drops. And so even if it works at 1 million, it might not work at 10 or 20. In fact, maybe one character trait of a great category is that it has good volume in the common media channels like Facebook or Google or Instagram. That said, the power is when you figure out to do something that's non-formulaic that other people aren't doing. Like when you're able to crack the code like Michelle Lamb did on Ipsy way back in the day, like celebrity YouTube, before anyone was doing that, that was like super cool, new, powerful, and I think that thing single-handedly got their business to 100 million in sales. So it's like, find something that is unique, shareable, reproducible, has a loyalty effect, you know, maybe it's built into the product. I mean, at Skull Candy, we used to always put stickers in our headphones, and of course we'd occasionally see those on people's cars or street signs or whatever. And it's like with Stance, one of the things that was cool is like I could give away a pair of socks for like less than $2. It's like not much more than a sticker. So one of the things we did is early on, we had Jay and Beyonce, our first year, they sent out 250 boxes of Stance socks to all their friends for Christmas. And their friends were like Zuckerberg, Oprah, Barack. And then that worked so well, the next year I did it with Will and Jada. And we just went to Will and Jada and said, hey, Will, you guys have all these friends. You probably send them Christmas gifts or Christmas cards. What if we did a super cool box? You guys help design it, and you send it out to all your friends, and we'll just pay for it. And you don't have any hassle with it. And they're like, sweet, let's give you the names. And so we did the whole thing. We executed the whole thing. And then that worked so well, I did it to CAA, to all their clients for their Christmas party in year 3. And then in year 4, we did the NBA to all the NBA families. And
critical ones,
so that was a way really where, look, we're sending out 250 gift boxes, and it would have like 6 pairs of socks in it or whatever. In a cool box you might reuse. In fact, Jay-Z has like a travel kit with it, a travel kit for socks. And then it had a coupon that said if you come back to our website in 14 days and buy more socks, you get it at the Jay-Z Friends and Family rate or something like that. And like 50% of the people that bought Reebok, or that got the gift Reebok. And so you think about like all of a sudden getting people like Mark Zuckerberg to be your customer. Like that's pretty freaking cool. So it wasn't a big project. It was quiet. It was behind the scenes, but it was highly influential, and it gave us a really cool influencer customer base. One thing that's really interesting about Stance is our top decile customers shop 18 times per year and spend over $2,000. Our top quartile customers spend 8 times a year and $500.
So there's definitely some power users.
Yeah, we don't have a broad customer base. We have a narrow base that's super freaky loyal.
Interesting. You know, we were just thinking about something you brought up before, and by the way, this has been great. You've been super generous with the time, so we'll get you out of here pretty soon. I mean, last couple thoughts. You know, I think that, and this reminds me of this hero slide, or this, you know, hero product concept and building from there. It definitely reminds me of like the MeUndies strategy. Bonobos MeUndies, where they start, you know, with a particular product and really refine it. And like, I think that for us, you know, our specs for whatever reason aren't probably there on what makes a great like hero product, but I'd be curious to hear like what you think the key metrics are. I mean,
how did you know that like you had found that hero product that is, you know, that you could build a brand around?
Well, I think we had like 10 criteria. And I think we were lucky in that we didn't have a company yet, so we could start in any category we wanted. And I can tell you how I thought about it, and it could be right, it could be wrong. But my criteria were big market, and by big I mean more than 10 billion, ideally more than 25 billion. Socks is about 25 billion, underwear is 40 billion globally, just as a backgrounder. The next thing that I looked at was the competitive landscape, but only from a single lens, which is how homogenized is it? In other words, how easy it is how easy will it be to differentiate? And I had seen this with Skullcandy, where Bose, Sennheiser, and Sony were all black and silver. They were all positioned on better sound quality, and you know, Skullcandy came out and positioned on fashion and look and brand, and sound quality was never even part of the question. And so they just changed the game. And like a good way to think about this is like, go next time you're at Target, like stand in front of the sunblock aisle, and you're gonna see like Copper Tone, Hawaiian Tropic, Neutrogena, Banana Boat, etc. And look at their bottles, their colors, how they're positioned, their prices, and then ask yourself the question: if you had to start a sunblock brand, how would you differentiate it? How would you make it stand out from the noise? And that's kind of the routine you're going through, and at whatever category you're looking at. And you know, pick a hard category like sunblock, and it will train you to figure out differentiation and which categories are easy and which ones are hard. So think about socks at the time. They were black, white, brown, beige, whatever, in bags, cheap Chinese hooks, Argyle socks down at the floor. It was just a terrible assortment. And so when we looked at socks, we're like, oh, that would be easy to stand out. Like, it's so homogenized. Right? The next criteria that I looked at is what I call just simply the flywheel. And for purposes of this discussion, you could put Dollar Shave Club on one end and Casper mattresses on the other. If it's something you only buy every 7 years, it's probably not a good category. And here's why. It costs so much to acquire a customer today in America, any customer in any category, that if the frequency of repurchase and use is low, it's really hard to arbitrage it with a lifetime value number that makes sense. By contrast, if it's like razors and you use it every week, the math works way easier. And that's just across all channels, whether you're TV, radio, billboard, Facebook, Google. So frequency of use and frequency of repurchase is really interesting. Like, I think initially you might think glasses is not a very good category. One of my investors was the CEO of Oakley for years and years, sold it to Luxottica. They did a study. The average Oakley customer lost their glasses in 6 weeks or broke them. It's like the frequency of use was way higher than you would naturally think. So another category that I looked really closely at doing but didn't do was luggage. And that was the reason I didn't do it. I thought Rimowa, Samsonite, Tumi, these brands are terrible. They're homogenized, good-sized market, easy to disrupt. And this was in 2008. I was like, but well, I'm going to go build the world's best piece of luggage, sell it one time, and no one will ever come back and buy it again. The number one best-selling piece of luggage in America is the Costco luggage. Kirkland.
Yep.
Anyways,
yeah, it's too bad I didn't get you on the phone. What I was doing a couple years ago is when I was like looking at just exploring kind of like with my own scorecard, different ideas, I would call up guys that I knew that had like just done a startup and it was going well, and I was like, what's your second favorite idea that you didn't do? Because then I was like, hey, I'll pay you for that or whatever. Try to get them to do that, because then like I would do that. You probably know like Andy Lotz. Like I asked him that one. He thought that was so funny that I was like hunting for people's second favorites. But this is the first time someone's volunteered their second favorite idea for us.
Yeah, Andy was my first investor. He used to be on my board.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I just connected with him through common friends like Brad Stroh. It was like GSB guys who I was connecting with like when I was back at Unilever, kind of trying to learn about startups and stuff.
Yeah, Andy's awesome. Unfortunately, his wife got cancer and ultimately died. But because of that, he had to get off my board. But he's an amazing operator, brilliant thinker, great like brand steward, good guy. Like I wish I had more interactions with him.
Yeah.
Anyways, long and short of it, the other criteria that I looked at, I'll give you another idea that I thought was good. Jewelry. So like from branded jewelry, you have like Claire's in the mall, and then of course you have like Tiffany's at the high end. But the average American buys their jewelry from a pushy salesman at Shaneco at the end of a mall exit on sale. And the experience is bad. And so, like, Blue Nile proved what can and can't be sold online, and I think they did an okay job. But there's definitely room in America for an aspirational but accessible jewelry brand. So there's a lot of categories like that. If you just walk around a Target, stop at the jewelry section, stop at the school supply section, you know, stop at housewares and ask yourself these questions that you already are trained, if you came out of Unilever, to ask. And it's like super revealing where all the opportunities are. Anyways, another one that I looked at was high gross margin, which should be obvious, but it's not to everyone. And I just feel like anything less than 50% is not worth doing. At Stance, when we sell the Nordstrom, it's a Keystone deal, 50%. When we sell in our retail stores, it's 72%. We have 5 of them. And when we sell online, it's 85, 87%. We blend out at about a 65% gross margin.
Wow, that's really good.
And so choosing a category with a high gross margin just means less capital intensity and less dilution to you, and easier path to profitability. So if you had 2 categories, all things being equal, and one could easily generate a higher gross margin, you'd go with that one every time. And the experience I had here is when we were getting ready to take Skull Candy public, we're like, oh shit, we're going to go public. We should tighten the belt, be good operators, blah, blah, blah. So we like revise our travel policy. You need 2 weeks in advance. You have to expense everything. Here's the per diem. We're not going to pay for your cell phone unless it's business, blah, 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 like all the bullshit. The culture, everyone in the company hated it. We renegotiated all of our leases with our landlord, and it saved like 1% of the OPEX. Because it's like a $300 million company, right? So it's like a couple $1 million in savings.
Right.
And it was like bloody. It's like you can get that exact same pickup of belt tightening with just 1 point better gross margin. On a $100 million company, every point of gross margin is $1 million. So it's like there's no substitute for gross margin, and most people underestimate how powerful it is. And then the last thing that I looked at was internet friendliness. And my little brother was like the second employee at Prime and has been with Bezos forever. And long and short of it is that he was like, one day he was telling me what a shitty acquisition Zappos was. And his comment was, he's like, look, they have 1,250 employees and 850 of them work in the call center processing returns. And I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, it's $1 billion business that breaks even. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, here's the thing. People are fundamentally uncomfortable buying shoes online. Shoes all fit differently. They have different profiles. The colors are never true to the picture. So to get them over that natural resistance, free shipping. Well, women buy 3 pairs and return 2. Men buy 2 pairs and return 1. And that whole supply chain and taking the merchandising back and picking up the telephone to talk to your customer to tell them your shoe didn't fit takes all their margin away. So when we looked at categories, we're like, all right, what is something that is, you naturally would buy it online? You could buy it as a gift. And more importantly, we looked at apparel. The average return at an online apparel company is 15-16%. Our returns at Stance are 0.3%. So it's like, if you're looking at a category and you know it's not naturally suited to do e-commerce, like that's a serious consideration.
Yeah.
So long and short of it, I think we had 10. I think I just gave you 5. But those are the big ones as we were considering what makes a good category.
Yeah, no, these are great. Yeah, I think we don't, naturally in trying to do this, I had what was probably a pretty rational scorecard, but, with this idea, we have some major weaknesses on some key traits that we just, put the blinders on because we wanted to, it's not a big category, it's a growing category, it's a confusing one. Most people in sort of food and beverage, they probably are more comfortable, of course, like buying in store and things like that. So there's all those challenges, but I do think we could probably craft and create some mystery and some allure to the pitch, like you were saying earlier, and then just kind of take it from there and find the investors. We know there are some that have approached us, good ones like Excel and Obvious and like that are into nootropics. They've already decided that they like that category. So that's probably our best bet. But I think that our hero product has a lot of headwinds when you think back to these scorecard factors of what really makes something fly. Because when 100, we take basically when we have a trial and only 55-60% of people want to convert over, I would imagine that maybe that's thought of as too low or very low for something, and part of it is like they don't want to allocate a new budget for something that they didn't know existed, right? It's not a category they had budgeted funds for, they have like a coffee budget of sorts, but this is like kind of incremental, and like that's why we're always tweaking the product and even trying different like form factors that might score a little bit better on this type of thing.
I mean, I don't know exactly what the product is. I mean, I understand nootropics, but, whether it's, powder you pour in your coffee or, a power cookie or like whatever format it's delivered in probably matters a lot. So like if you could figure out a really interesting container for the compound, like that could be the key to making it take off. And again, I don't know. You come out of Unilever, so you understand CPG. But it seems like, coming out with one, like single product that has the ingredient, for lack of a better example, like what vitamin water did 10 or 15 years ago. Oh, vitamins in the water. I don't even know if it has vitamins in the water. But that concept of, look, we're going to take some kind of flavored water and deliver vitamins in that format. It was really a vitamin company, right? Like Nature's Way or whoever else makes vitamins in America. And they just delivered it in a different format that people liked. And so maybe the growth hack for you guys, for lack of a better word, is like, all right, we have this cool nootropic formula, and do we package that in bullet coffee? Do we package that in a hydrating beverage? Do we package that in a protein bar? Like, what is the right delivery mechanism where customers would be like, yeah, this is really cool? I think the thing that all brands have in common is there is a sense of discovery that lends itself to word of mouth.
Right.
There's like, I think people, they like to tell people, oh, you've never heard of Stamps? It's this like sock company. They make really comfortable socks and they have cool designs on it. And they like being able to explain to a friend that they knew about this thing that their friend didn't. And that word of mouth conversion is super powerful. As everyone knows, like, it's the best advertising you could ever hope to get when you get it. And so it's like, what is that like discovery moment where, let's say I pick up your product in this market you referenced, this is like the hardcore Whole Foods. And is it the taste? Is it the effect that it has on my brain? Like, what is the thing that makes me talk? And ideally, like, the very least, I'd bring it home and I would tell my wife or my kids or my neighbor, like, dude, I tried this new bar today. It was crazy. It made me feel whatever, full of energy. You know, like that, I think that one thing, if you have that, could be the turning point.
Yeah.
And then, shoot, you don't even need to sell the product. You could give it away. Right? If you really had the word of mouth, like if it was so powerful that everyone wanted to talk about it, then you could really seed the market. Like, yeah, you want to sell it in supermarkets, but no big deal to show up to Coachella and give 50,000 of them away. Because, you know, people are going to talk and come back.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, we don't have enough referral kind of shareability at the moment, and that's another thing where I think the bars is like a more comfortable format. But so listen, yeah, I'm gonna send you. If I'll just ask Danielle for that, confirm the address. We'd love to send you some of our drinks and maybe a few of the sample bars as well to get your take on this. But yeah, listen, Jeff, this has been huge. We'll let you jump for now, but this has been great, man. We got a lot of good notes here, and I think Ian and I have a lot to think about from this.
Well, see, anytime you want to come down and surf lowers, let us know. We're down in San Clemente. You're welcome to come hang out in our office and visit anytime you want.
Yeah, Ian and I are total, what do they call them, the kooks or whatever?
Yeah, kooks.
Yeah, we're total hacks on the surfing, but we'd love to visit at some point, maybe when it's slower down there, some Friday or something like that. That'd be awesome. We could bring a bunch of samples by and stuff like that.
Yeah, people would love it.
Cool. That sounds great, Jeff. Appreciate the help again, and thanks again for connecting.
Awesome. Nice to meet you guys. Wish you the best of luck. If there's anything I'm ever do to help, just let me know.
You got it. We'll talk soon. Thanks again.
All right. Bye.